Hey, what's up, guys? Elmer Brown Enriquez, your host of Artistic Visions, the show where we like to go in depth with young artists at OCAD, talk about their art, what they'd like to talk about in their art, and what they would like to talk about in their art. In today's episode, for the Grad special, I have a special guest, Mark Chepis. How you doing?
My name is John Quinones, and what would you do? I'm doing good.
I can't wait to interview John Quinones, who's presenting at Grad this year.
Exactly, yeah.
You're finally out,
We're
right?
gonna set up a trap door with like a pool of leeches.
Oh,
And
it's a
then
performance piece.
We're gonna test if people are gonna save the ones that fell in, and then I'm gonna come out with the microphone. But no, I'm Mark Chepis, illustrator at OCAD, and BroCAD member,
Yes.
founding member.
From the very beginning, yeah.
From the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and let's start it off. Who are you, and what kind of art do you usually do?
Well, as I said, I'm Mark Chepis, illustrator, founding BroCAD member. I am in my fifth, one of them, year at OCAD for the illustration program. I make work that plays on tropes of highbrow and lowbrow, taking a lot of artistic influence from different movements, also illustrated ephemera. I'm a sort of old soul when it comes to making my work. I work entirely analog, and a lot of that informs my practice and the choices that I make.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what? Let's just go into your piece that, or at least one of the pieces you'll be
Yes.
presenting at Grad because you'll be presenting, I believe, 10 different works.
Yeah, 9, 10. yeah.
Nine to 10.
It depends how much space they give me.
Fair enough.
Maybe 6.
maybe 6.
Maybe 1. I don't
Oh
know.
no! Oh no!
If they really hate me.
Well, you know, for one of the 10, 9, 6 pieces that Mark will be showing, we have Bonaparte filtered cigarettes.
Yes.
What do you want to say about this piece?
Well, this piece is obviously based off of a painting by Jacques-Louis David of Napoleon crossing the Alps. And this is a sort of reimagining of that as a Marlboro ad. It's based off of the Marlboro Man and just sort of replacing Napoleon, who's this kind of figure of dominance and masculinity, and relating it to tropes of Marlboro ads from like the 60s and 70s. I also had fun creating my own kind of cigarette brand in the bottom left there.
Are you gonna release those as well? You're gonna sell some cigarettes?
Maybe
at
if
Grad
the illustration stuff doesn't work out, I know a guy who sells them for $5 a pack.
Oh, nice.
Rebrand it, sell them for 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, right off the bat, one thing that has always struck me about your art is your use of color and shapes.
Yes.
And this strives, this doesn't strive anywhere far from that. And that's something that I absolutely love. First off, with the color, I love how much the land mixes with the horse and the subject, your person, and it meshes so well together. And and honestly, you use a color palette that's very similar to the cigarettes that you have there.
Yeah.
And like that is a really nice touch.
Yeah.
And of course, the shapes that you use is something I always loved because of how jagged they can be, but how smooth as well and how realistic they feel.
Yeah.
Especially with the horse.
That was a challenge, designing the horse, because the horse is very dynamic in the David painting, so I kind of had to sketch it out and kind of simplify things, see where lines can be adjusted. It's almost like a snap grid on Photoshop or something. You're just kind of seeing where things can fit together like a puzzle. That's something that I add to my thesis project, because that's just my style.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it like too much of facsimile of a Marlboro ad or these types of illustrations. I want to add my own flavor to it. Yeah, the color palette's supposed to be based off of the French flag, especially in the cigarette package. The landscape, I based a lot of the landscape off of one of my favorite cloud painters, Mark Maggiore.
Okay.
He does a lot of like country western artwork, and that's something I really wanted to push, just the colors of the landscape, because in the original painting it's kind of like a grayish mountain, so just like let's put some red in there, kind of bring it around the composition.
Yeah, no, that's something I wanted to mention is like how detailed the clouds are, because you know you have details already on your land, but adding on the color as well, the clouds are so detailed and so
Thank you.
different, that it allows this world, even though you have these shapes that are so like hard and you can see straight lines, like it just gives that like emphasis on the subject and really
Yeah.
complements everything around it. And that's what I really like with it. And
Thank you.
Obviously with even the cigarette like pack, like I love how it's just like off to the side. It's not like a straight on. Like it gives more of that dimension, like how much space there really is in this in this one like painting that you did.
Yeah.
How much space there really is between everything.
Yeah, what I did differently here is I notoriously I like to paint the subjects and the figures first, and then the background, which is a terrible idea. But for this one, I really wanted the clouds to sell the image, to really paint this image of like a great landscape to be explored, to be conquered. So I did the background completely first, and then I worked in the figures. So I'm very proud of that aspect. It doesn't feel half-assed, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, like I agree. Like I think just it does give that emphasis on that land to be conquered. Obviously, you're referencing, Bonaparte's, journeys, his expeditions.
Yes.
And like just that homage to not only Bonaparte but the Marlboro ad that you're talking about before, like it adds on really nicely and gives it. I feel like this, if no one did this already, like I'm surprised, because like this would be a perfect ad.
I was really concerned that this was already done.
Wow.
So I combed the internet and didn't find anything similar.
Wow.
So I'm just like, okay, good. It's free reign. But you bring up the cigarette pack, and like that's a fun aspect, because when you look at those old Marlboro ads, it's always like a scene, or just like cigarette ads in general. It's like a whole scene, and then there's just like pasted on a cigarette pack.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like a surreal composition, because it's just like there's this thing that doesn't make sense there, but it's there because they're trying to sell
It's
cigarettes.
so detached from the.
Yeah, it's detached, right? So I wanted to capture that. I made the white in the cigarettes like straight out of the tube, white. So there's no cast shadow on it.
But the side has shadow on it, so you do give that space. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what's so interesting.
So when you remove the text from it, because usually there would be like something like I don't know, like Marlboro, where the flavor is or something, it would all come together. But when you strip it of text, it just becomes this kind of weird image.
That's a lot of different moving parts for this one thing, which is really awesome. How well thought out like it feels for this piece, and I'm excited to see your other works as well, because it's not limited to this. You have a lot more to work on, or that you worked on. I mean, I did want to ask, what kind of messages would you like to try and tackle on, or have you tackled on in your arts right now?
Yeah, well, let's start with this piece. This one calls into question tropes of masculinity. That's ultimately what I picked out from David's painting and the Marlboro ads. Is that in David's painting, Napoleon is this young man on a giant horse, like pointing into battle, right? Leading his men to fight, but in reality, he wasn't present for the battle. He came the day after on a donkey, and he wasn't a young man. His son actually posed for that picture.
Oh wow!
So it's entirely propaganda to make Napoleon seem cooler, more masculine, more dominant. In the same way that those Marlboro ads work, is just like, oh, here's this cowboy, here's the ideal of what a man is, but ultimately they're trying to sell you cigarettes, right? To make money off you, and they don't care how you end up. So it's a harmful product. And with the David painting of Napoleon, it's like sort of packaging harmful ideas. So that's what's being explored here. And with my thesis works, I want to sort of identify this gray area or this overlap between stereotypically high art and stereotypically low art. So with my thesis work, I'm focusing on like neoclassical artwork and pulp illustration and other adjacent types of lowbrow illustration. And then identifying tropes that are similar, sort of breaking them down, merging them together. Because ultimately what I want to say with my art is that there's no highbrow or lowbrow emotions. You know, we all respond to artwork as human beings. And I think that helps kind of bring down high art a little bit, or like some elements of high art, and like elevate things with illustration, just to kind of make a grander statement that like at the end of the day, it's all art. You know, it all has something to say.
Exactly, because you know, when people start looking at pieces and start comparing it to, oh, Van Gogh's painting did this, and then it's like, well, this is Van Gogh's thing. Like, you know, that's misconstrued at this point, the meanings, but you have different meanings that always will constantly pop up from different perspectives on top of that, and then that adds on to the conversation about that one piece. I definitely agree with that. You know, it's to talk about those kind of, not necessarily issues, but those topics in art, right? It's really interesting to touch on with different ways, different styles. For your thesis specifically, I know you've touched on kind of the inspiration, but I do want to ask again, who or what was the inspiration for your thesis works?
Yeah, well, I remember I was at, this was, I think about 2 years ago. I was at the AGO with a friend of mine, and we were just killing time. We finished class, and I think we were in one of the European galleries, like Renaissance, Baroque, and we were looking at this one painting by Peter Paul Rubens. And it was a painting of Jesus getting hung on the cross, like in the process of being hung up. And it was very dynamic. There was a lot of like muscled figures, like pulling on rope, and like strong diagonals, people crying, like a background that kind of swooped, and it was a brilliant painting. And my buddy, who's a comic artist, he said to me, this kind of looks like a Frank Frazetta painting. And Frank Frazetta is like this godfather of fantasy art. And so he basically said like, oh, this Peter Paul Rubens looks like it could be like cover art for a fantasy book. And like that was a silly thought, but I thought about it. I'm just like, you know what? It really is. You know, it's just like it's a similar. There's similar things at work here. Just the muscles, the dynamic pose, the background, the composition, the drama, the bravado. So like, what makes one different than the other? Of course, this one's like talking about the New Testament, but like other stuff, like talking about ancient Greece or Greek myth, like that's essentially fantasy. There's monsters, there's heroes and villains, the same way like in comic books. So I really wanted to explore this relationship. That's how it started.
Yeah, you can even point back to David's painting and be like, that's fantasy, because that's not actually what happened.
It's not objectively real.
Yeah, it's a representation maybe, but it's still like an ideal, and it's pushing this narrative. And you know, I wanted to point out, like, you know, with those muscles, I noticed the horse as well, like the shaping of it like almost emphasizes the size of this power of the horse. And that, like, I really like that a lot, and it adds on to that detail.
Well, the horse in this case is almost like almost like a phallic symbol, you know. It's almost like an extension of the self. It's just like, look how, like a car almost, you know.
It's the Porsche of the old days. What they say
about people with big trucks, right? You know, it's the same. You know, there was a conscious choice being made by these artists, right?
Yeah.
To emphasize certain things.
Yeah, no, for 100%. I totally agree with that. And I do want to go through a little throwback time.
Yes.
How would you kind of compare your art from when you first started at OCAD to now?
When I first started, I came from it was an art high school, but really the visual art program was underfunded, and it was mostly towards dance. So I didn't really take much creative inspiration from it. My teachers were great, but it was just like I wasn't in the right mindset at that time. So I came to OCAD just doing like pencil sketches. I never really worked with colors. I was just basically doing like celebrity portraits or just copying things I saw on Pinterest. When first year happened, I met some interesting people, and I wanted to explore, and I fancied myself an abstract artist. I discovered who Basquiat was, and I was just kind of like running amok and like loosening. Every painter has this stage. Some people are still stuck in it, their Basquiat stage. It's already been said, don't do it. I was just in a state of wanting to try everything. And then when the pandemic hit, I had more time to make work. So I really started to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like.
Yeah.
Eventually that ended up to where I am now. And I think with my earlier work, there was just like a level of, there was a lack of confidence to it, which is normal, right? Because you're still experimenting.
Yeah.
You're trying.
You don't know what where your footing is.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was like a lot more variety in a way, but I think now I've honed it into a more sophisticated way, in a way that I can look at a painting and I don't have to worry about what is my style going to be for this one. It's just like you just work on the painting and it evolves in front of you. So that's the main difference, is just like confidence. I'm sure my art style is going to change in the future.
Yeah.
Because it's just natural, right?
It's an ever evolving thing that just keeps going.
So, yeah.
And even because I kind of met you like after second year, that was like after pandemic coming back, and like seeing a lot of your art from then and even till now, there's still even a big change there. Like you had a lot more red motifs in it, and I mean you still use a lot of red.
Yeah.
But
oh man, the red. It's crazy you brought that up. It's true, yeah.
too much on the economy there, but
yes.
yeah, no, it's still, now you're like, obviously I think with your shaping and alongside the detailing you do on top of the shape, like the shaping with your subjects, I think that's where that style really starts to evolve, and that's where we see that change. So
there's a lot of moments where I'm just like I wish I could go back, I look at like something that I made like 2 years ago. I'm just like, oh man, like I want to paint like this, but like for some reason I can't. It's just like there's something in me that really wants to overwork something, or like I want to recreate something that I did a year or two ago, and I just can't, because it's just like my style has evolved.
Yeah.
So that's always something fun when you look back and just like, oh crap, I was actually better in this case,
Yeah. I mean, speaking on looking back, for my final question of the interview, sadly, what is some advice you would actually give to yourself, to your first year self?
To my first year self, first of all, I would say get off your high horse. Don't think you're hot shit because you did something different. Because there was many moments in first year where I did something new, and I'm just like, this is my style now. And then the next thing I did, this is my style now. And you feel the sense, you're so desperate for a style, you feel the sense to just like keep doing the same thing over and over again when you do something new. So I would want to alleviate some of that anxiety. Just like, hey, it's don't box yourself in. It's don't assume that the first thing you do differently is going to be your style. Just keep it flux, keep going. It'll end up somewhere good. I have this tendency to overthink and just like assume the worst until the worst doesn't happen, and I'm just like, oh, thank God. So I would want to alleviate some of that stress to my first year self. Just tell him like, don't overthink things. Just keep going, and you'll end up in a better spot. Yeah,
for sure.
That's what I'd say.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, it's hard, especially first year selves. You know, like you see all these different artists who maybe feel like they understand what their style is, and then you end up just naturally comparing yourself to other people, and you just want to be like, oh, I want this as my style. This is me, right? And then you don't actually know until you're actually in it.
Yeah.
So that it takes time to get to that style, right?
I'd also tell myself in first year, New Year's Eve 2020, put the vodka down.
Oh no.
It's not worth it. You don't have to be the life of the party.
Oh no.
You have to pay for the mattress after.
Oh, okay. Well, now I can only assume what happened on the New Year's Eve 2020.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I'd say.
The greatest year that happened.
Oh, yeah. I let him know, just like, there will be a global pandemic in 2020.
He's like, there's no way.
Yeah.
No way. It's like,
that's exactly what I do.
yeah.
Invest in GameStop.
Oh, that's
GameStop.
invest in the GameStop stock, of course, and get
Yes.
some money. And maybe some crypto and NFTs. NFTs will be the future.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'd tell him. And I'd be a bajillionaire.
There you go. Invest in Bored Apes.
Yes. Yeah.
Mark, thank you.
All right, no problem.
So much for your time. Before we end off this episode, is there anything you'd like to plug, promote, or put out there for the world?
I'd like to plug Elmer's Crispy Docks.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
I put mink oil yesterday.
Oh, good.
I did,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
looked
still
crispy.
kind of
Yeah.
ass right now.
Let's. He has a GoFundMe to get some dubbin paste for the docks. You know, gotta keep them pristine. But come to GradX 109. It's 9.
It's 109 now.
109 May 1st to 5th. Check out everybody's work, not just drawing and painting. Everybody. Okay.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for your time, and I hope you had a good time as much as I did.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for watching this episode of Artistic Visions. I cannot wait to see you guys very, very soon. Take it easy. Hope you have a good weekend.
Take care, everyone.
And a good general day.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye.